All right, I will call to order the regular meeting of the Lisle Park District Board of Commissioners today, Thursday, September 19th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Dan, can I get a call to order and a roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Dombrowski,
Here.
Commissioner Tapella,
Here.
Commissioner Altpeter,
Here.
Commissioner Hummel,
Here.
President Wessel.
Here. I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, presentations, we have none scheduled. Public comment. Sorry, look at this. Here. There we go. Visitors are welcome to address the Board of Park Commissioners. You are asked to raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the board president. When recognized, please move to the lectern, speak into the microphone, and state your name, address, and the item you wish to discuss. It is requested that one spokesperson for a group be appointed to present the views of the entire group rather than having multiple individuals repeat similar opinions. There will be a 5-minute time limit per speaker. Do I have any public comment? Sure, go ahead.
Good evening, Vitas Matulauskas, 6282 Timberview Drive, Lisle. Today I must address some serious issues. Recent events show that this board has failed citizens of Lisle and immediate action is needed. We need to talk about the term limits for commissioners. The position should not allow lifetime appointment, and currently there's nothing that would prevent that. Serving more than 2 terms isn't helping the community, as we have seen with the pickleball situation. This board is illegally keeping the pickleball courts without proper authorization to override noise zoning ordinances, showing a complete disregard for the legal processes and public trust. FOIA records reveal that meeting minutes are being called authorization. This is ridiculous. Meeting minutes only record discussions. They do not override health impacting noise zoning ordinances. It's insulting to the intelligence of Lisle residents to suggest otherwise. I have requested a board discussion and vote on this, and I expect my voice with along the others to be heard. Now about Tatewoods. The contract had an August 1st completion date, which is legally binding. Now the contractor is late and penalties should be enforced. Well, however, the director seems ready to let contractor without penalty. Why? Is this just more incompetence or is it something shady happening? If penalties are not enforced, we need to ask, is this corruption, bid rigging, or maybe kickbacks? Something isn't right here. I called this contractor in April, and at that time I was told the project completion is expected in the fall. So they were aware that being late is okay. Contract is a contract. Penalties must be applied. If the director made the private promise not to enforce penalties, he should pay $25,000 out of his own pocket. Citizens of Lisle certainly don't get a break on their property taxes deadline. Why should contractors? Finally, regarding ordinances, Director Smetana is refusing to enforce noise zoning ordinances for a separate taxing body, and he has sent me back to you. I'm asking you to deal with this now. The Park District is not above the law. Without valid authorization, it cannot override zoning ordinances. You have already acknowledged the noise issues with pickleball at Valley Forge. So why are you ignoring the same problem at Abbeywood? More than half of the players there come from Naperville, where pickleball is properly managed. Lisle shouldn't become a dumping ground for activities not welcome in other villages. As for public comment, I have made many, but it feels like I'm speaking into a black hole. For a year now, I've been stonewalled at every turn. This is incredibly frustrating. Talking to a wall would be more productive. I would at least hear an echo. You are the highest authority and must address all the issues, not the ones you prefer. Do your job. Citizens demand action and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items, inclusive of the September voucher list of $712,873.78.
So moved. Do I need to actually say the motion?
No.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Dan, can I get a roll call vote?
Yes. Commissioner Topella,
Aye.
Commissioner Dombrowski,
Aye.
Commissioner Alpeter,
Aye.
Commissioner Hummel,
Aye.
President Wessel.
Aye. Motion passes. Communications, we have none from what I can tell. Unfinished business, none. New business, the Lisle Park District succession plan, sorry, not breaking away. Any conversation?
Nope.
Any comment from the commissioners? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the Lisle Park District succession plan as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Dan, can I get a roll call vote?
Commissioner Alpeter,
Aye.
Commissioner Dombrowski,
Aye.
Commissioner Topella,
Aye.
Commissioner Hummel,
Aye.
President Wessel.
Aye. Motion passes. Next new business is the River Bend Golf Club Cart Path Replacement Project. Any conversation about that? If I could find it. Any-
Yeah, actually, I'm going to make a comment. I was going to say it's nice to see that the lowest bidder on this open bid form is the one that we're doing business with and is getting awarded the contract, which would kind of allude to the fact that there's not any dirty dealings there, because the same person that we're happy with his work also has the lowest bid. So,
And they're local, which is a double
Right.
bonus.
And I do have to say, having been on the course this summer and opposed to other summers and listening to the golfers, the ones that we have replaced so far have made a giant difference, and it really is, it's noticeable.
Good.
Given all that, I'll entertain a motion to award the 2024 Riverbend Golf Club Concrete Cart Path Project to Concrete Management, Inc. from Lisle, Illinois, in the amount of $68,180.
So moved.
Second.
Dan, can I get a roll call vote?
Yes. Commissioner Alpeter,
Aye.
Commissioner Topella,
Aye.
Commissioner Dombrowski,
aye.
Commissioner Hummel,
Aye.
President Wessel.
Aye. All right, motion passes. See here, staff report seemed, first one is the Sea Lion Aquatic Park existing conditions analysis, the draft report summary. Dan, I'll let you, any comments?
It's just that the draft report was received by staff and reviewed with the team a few weeks ago. We should be receiving the final copy by sometime in October, but I just felt compelled to report on what we learned from the draft report sooner than later. I know Commissioner Hummel had a question about if we have an idea of the costs that are going to be involved with that, and we don't. I mean, we know some ideas of certain components, but we haven't dug in real hard on those things because that's in the scope of work of the architects. We will be allocating, I can tell you some allocations next year, the ones that we can identify right away, like the required portable lifts, the ADA lifts for the pools, the grab bars, the ones that are a lot more obvious, the lowering the grade that's adjacent to the decks. So a lot of that we know, but we're going to wait and see how the bigger items shake out. I know that the one large, and Superintendent Cerruti can chime in if I missed something, but one of the large, and that is in that report, but one of the biggest filters in there is at end of life. We don't expect to budget its replacement for 2025 because that's going to require some permitting and a lot more coordination. So we'll be hopeful that we can get that through another season, but that's certainly something that we're going to prioritize for 2026, but that'll be a six-figure
And does that require an architectural study as well to replace that?
We're not sure. We're assuming yes. We're told that a lot of the components that are going to need to be replaced are going to require like certified engineers or licensed contractors to install.
Okay.
So
But I
we'll-
thought
we'll
that was
work
my
with-
understanding going forward, that that's kind of a newer.
Yeah.
In the meantime, if that item fails, we're still in a position where we can repair it.
No,
So we'd have to do an emergency replacement if it failed.
yes.
Okay.
Is it,
There's also 3 of those, not just the one, all
Right.
3 of those big blue ones, but
Yeah. But there's one that
one
was
that's in
rated
worse
as
shape than
4.
the others.
Okay.
I don't remember the part that broke like a year ago, but like, is it even one of those things you could get right away or would what just close the pool for the season?
No, I doubt it.
The whole, any pool replacement like that would be required to be permitted through IDPH. So that requires architects and drawings and then permitting it, and it has to be installed by a licensed contractor.
It's not as easy as it used to be.
Right, but a lot of
that's
the-
the question.
A lot of the repairs for these pools are usually done through the contractor that makes the repair. They usually have the licensing and permitting, and they don't have to go to an outside source for like, let's say, an architectural design. They usually do stuff in-house. Do we have a contract to anyone who does any of the current maintenance on the pools?
Dan's Mechanical is who we use
Okay.
quite a bit.
Do they have the availability of inside engineers and architects and everything else that do that?
No, he does more of the installation type stuff. He doesn't do.
Right, but a lot of installers do their one-stop shop now because it's just Illinois Department of Health that you have to get the permitting through. I've installed like 4 in the last 4 apartment complexes, so I'm familiar. But I'm just saying maybe then it would be smart, advantageous of us to maybe get some different bids for the maintenance agreements with someone who can also do these other things.
If
Because
you
you're
could
going to get a
pass
much
along-
better cost.
Yeah, if you could pass along some of the names of the contractors
Yeah,
you have.
no, I'll
that'd
be
great.
more than happy to.
Great.
Well, let's just
Well,
keep
yeah,
our fingers crossed. We don't even need to do any of
Let's
that.
say
So,
that's a
yeah.
26 problem.
Yeah, let's go on to that.
All right. Any other conversation? If not, we'll just look forward to seeing the summary in October.
Yes.
I just want to say that I appreciated you guys giving us the advanced summary. It kind of lessens the blow for when we're ready to see the actual, and I shouldn't say blow. It looks like overall it's going to be a very favorable report, but it just preps us for what's to come. So
I mean, are you guys expecting beyond what you detail, like any major expenses?
No idea.
You have
It's
no-
premature, yeah. I mean, from the draft report, no. The biggest issues, I believe, are the mechanical systems that filter.
So it won't be like millions of dollars.
No. I don't think so.
Find some wood to knock on.
Surprised.
You want to knock on this?
Yeah.
Move on.
All right. Any other conversation? If not, all right, moving on to the indoor recreation space feasibility study discussion. And there's a draft RFP submitted, which I think is what we talked about last month, that we wanted to send an RFP out. So any comments?
I got plenty. So
Good.
just strap it in. No, I had the one question on the email, about like what other private sector facilities would charge us rent, like specifically, I think it was indoor pickleball. And I know there are some logistics issues as well as, I mean, maybe some cost issues, but I know some are just like as little as $40 per court hour. So, I mean, like when I look at stuff like that, it's like I would, I would rather just subsidize the rent on that for the program instead of spending millions of dollars on an indoor facility. I mean, it's a much cheaper proposition to do that.
Tom, no offense. I mean, I did read a lot of your comments. A lot of them are really premature to us even having back what we would do. I mean, talking about something as minute as subsidizing pickleball when it hasn't even been determined if that's what we would use that space for. Do you
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Yeah, but
They're really premature discussions, I think.
But I mean, even if it's basketball courts or anything, I mean, I know there's other options available. I would rather pay a modest fee in rent instead of building, a multi-million dollar facility. Again, if this is truly community driven off of the strategic master plan, why are we not looking at like trails? Because I know that rated very high, if not the highest on the strategic master plan.
I
Go
I
ahead.
can answer that.
Sure.
I would be open to suggestions on where else we should put trails.
Okay.
We've got trails in every park already, and it
Mhm.
always scores highly, and it's the connectivity between
Mhm.
parks and other points of interest in town where the issue
Mm.
is. So again, if you've got suggestions on
Yeah.
where we should put trails where we don't have them,
Yeah.
we're all ears.
I mean, that would probably be an intergovernmental agreement with the county and village too. I know, so I don't know if, if any movement has been done on that lately. Again, I still would like to see some type of business plan for how we're going to cover the operating and maintenance and expense of a new facility if we build one. Would new revenue growth justify that space? Because how are we going to make up any recreation fund surplus that we no longer may have access to for existing park district operations and capital projects? This is a very important step, in my opinion, because I'll be blunt. I mean, historically, the park district has improved. They can run a business, whether it's the restaurant or fitness center. So, I mean, bottom line is we cannot absorb losses in a facility this size. And honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing this if it does come to fruition. It would be set up as an enterprise fund. Some general comments too. I know several years ago there was a joint board meeting between the park district and the school district in regards to Sheezer School, and I know that's currently leased to Chesterton Academy, I believe it is.
And
Is-
C-Spar and SASD, SASD.
Yeah. Is there any, I mean, do we know what the school district's plan for that facility is or what the lease agreements are? I mean, is that totally off limits to use that gym even temporarily or even acquire that building in the future?
As far as acquiring the building, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it, knowing the condition that it's in. I think
Just,
that
I mean,
would
but
be a
not just the
loss.
gym. I mean, so,
As far as the gym, we did have access the first year or two that Chesterton was in there, and it was a nightmare.
okay.
They were difficult to work with. They had demands for it too. So we ultimately backed out.
And
It was more hassle than it was worth.
And that building comes with its own challenges. When we had our joint task force and we're over there touring that, I mean, that's going to need a really lot of repairs coming up too. That was one of the concerns with that as well.
Do we have access to the St. Joan gym? And also, have we ever reached out to Benedictine University? I mean, colleges are mostly vacant during summer and winter breaks. So, I mean, I would assume there would be some open gym space, maybe not in season necessarily, but still, I mean, have we ever talked to them?
St. Joan of Arc, we had it's been several years.
Mhm.
When I had approached them and they, just like the Lisle schools, their demand for in-house use, won't allow for it. They haven't
Mhm.
allowed, and we have had some preliminary conversations with Benedictine University as recently as, was that last week, John?
I mean,
We're-
that's like dead center in town. So, I mean, if something could be done, worked out with them, that would be, and
I think just the rationale behind us recommending this is that
Mhm.
in the strategic master plan, that was one of the big moves that was approved. Is the first one is develop additional indoor multi-generational recreational space. And
Mhm.
I mean, I know you didn't vote to support that plan, but the reason you voted no was that you didn't agree with the term pass a referendum.
Correct.
So, I mean, that was the first one. So I think if I'm wrong in assuming that that's something that you would at least subscribe to, or the board would subscribe to pursuing, not actually going to build it, but at least pursuing it, that's all we're recommending.
Yeah, I would hope like the business plan, that would be part, maybe not the RFP, but yeah, that would definitely, I would agree with you, Commissioner Hummel, like, right? You'd want to know how you're going to use the space before you built it.
But that's all.
But
part
yeah,
of- that's
agree,
in here.
agree. That's part of that's why we have a study.
It's in the
right?
feasibility study.
Yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner Hummel, I'm sure you've got a lot more on there too,
Mhm.
but I think that unless it's dramatically different in scope from what you've already mentioned, like if you actually read the proposed RFP, it specifically talks about everything you've already mentioned
Mhm.
being included in the feasibility study. So everything you're talking about is exactly what we're trying to do.
Mhm.
I think this is actually a really well-written RFP. I think it's good to go. It covers everything that I would have put in here as far as including what we need in order to do a proper feasibility study that absolutely would include things like a business plan, right? And all those other elements that you've mentioned. So I don't think anything's being circumvented or forgotten in any of this.
Yeah, well, I guess actually in regards to, I mean, there did seem like there was some duplicate stuff that we've already done in the strategic plan. Like, I think we've done the demographic data. And like I said, it did seem like there was a lot of information we already had included in the strategic plan. So
Would it not be wise to refresh that information?
it's only been, what, 2 years?
But I thought you had, and I don't remember, I thought you had suggested last month that some of the data in the plan was outdated or isn't useful.
Well, but demographic data, I guess, is what I'm looking at. I don't know how much it's changed in 2 years. You're right. There are facilities like indoor pickleball is definitely, the facilities have come online, you know, businesses have opened. So that's true. That is true. Actually, I was looking at the Oak Park one and I actually did like one thing they had in there and I was wondering if we could include it. It did have in the section of desired outcome. It has Park District of Oak Park is interested in pursuing a model that can be financially self-sustaining. So like that type of verbiage could be added.
But that's all part of the feasibility study.
All right. And then also one part, even though it's kind of alluded to in the RFP, but I think it's a little bit more explicit in the Oak Park one. Park District responses to questions from respondents. I'll just summarize. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically it's like whoever like signs up, if you will, like, or sends the board or the Park District an email that they would also respond with questions and answer from everybody. So everybody would get the questions and answers. So like if contractor A asked a question, contractor B and C would also get it and vice versa. So
As far as what, as far as as they're preparing their proposal?
so during the question, where the portion that's open for questions. So it says questions or requested clarifications regarding the requirements of the RFP must be addressed to the executive director no later than November 24th at 5 p.m. The executive director will provide a written email response that states every question and includes the Park District's answer to every respondent that registers on the Park District website for this RFP or transmits an email addressed to the executive director prior to November 30th. The intent of this procedure is for every respondent to know each question and each Park District answer. The Park District will not respond to any questions received after 5 p.m.
In practice. If we
Okay.
want to put that in there, that's fine, but that's common fundamental practice
Okay.
during a public bidding process.
All right. And then they're going to look at other potential vacant space, not just in the Park District, but throughout the village, like if there's any
That's in the
industrial.
RFP.
Okay, I see it. I'm just confirming. Also, I know, then we get to the community survey. I would like to see an option where it's actually, and I mean, it wouldn't be in the RFP itself, but when we get to the community engagement part, I would like to see an option that actually allows a choice for people of no new facility or tax referendum. I just don't want it where the questions kind of steer in a certain direction. So I would rather have an option that would allow for people to choose no new facility or no referendum. I do think the park board should be included in some of the sections here, like in the draft, instead of just what the contractor working with staff. I do think the park board should be included. The evaluation committee, I think, should be a committee of the whole or the full board. That should be done in open session as well. I really, I'm strong on that one for in interest of transparency. I guess I have a question on the timeline too. I know Elmer's basically gave a whole year from RFP release to the final report, and in the Naperville RFP, the release was on October 12th, 2023, and the completion date was September 1st, 2024. Are we given it enough time with the September 1st, 2025 completion date on the draft?
It's the
Okay.
draft. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Okay.
It would be negotiable as far as however. the
And I
board
would
wants to
argue that
proceed.
each of those people had deadlines depending on what their scope and what they were
Everything-
looking for. Everything was
Right.
different.
Mhm.
Where Lisle,
No, I agree. So I
Intent
think,
that in that the biggest statement in there is that the participating firms are encouraged, something along the lines of are encouraged to recommend or suggest alternative options and courses of action.
do we know who wrote the RFP for Naperville Park District?
No,
All right. The only, and I think I had it in my email or one of my correspondence, probably the biggest concern I have with the Naperville Park District one was
I'd again say we're Lisle Park
Well,
District
but the RFP is almost.
and we're getting our
mirror-
own RFP.
But it's basically mirrors Naperville's. And I guess the concern I have, it only got 2 responses. I would like to see more responses. So I don't know if that's, feasible and obviously.
What do you
or
mean you
something
got
big.
2 responses?
So when they put out their RFP, they only got 2 bids back.
Who Naperville did?
Yeah, Williams Architect
I
and
mean, that's immaterial to us, but I would agree. I think the more the better,
Yeah.
but I mean, that's going to be based on who wants to respond to the
They
RFP.
can't force anyone. to-
Right.
like,
Right.
no,
Again,
I agree with you. I mean, the more the better.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll do everything we can, I presume, right? To
and this
encourage
was-
people
this was
to
answered in an
get
email
involved.
You had submitted
Yeah.
prior that, yeah, we're going to cast as wide a net
Yeah.
as possible. I've already spoken to Williams Main competitor, gave them a facility tour
Mhm.
just earlier this week, I think on Monday. Talked to a couple of other consulting firms. So I heard loud and clear last month and I took the direction the board gave.
okay. All righty.
Any other? Thank you, Tom. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of interject here a little bit. So the request, the RFP that we're requesting is just for the feasibility study. It's not guaranteeing that we're actually going to break ground or do anything.
Correct.
Currently, we have the building next door, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan.
Yep.
Starting to, has very little use outside of the summer camps, correct?
Right.
And now we're trying to decide if there is a need in the community that is worth utilizing that building over there. I would love whoever we have for this RFP to actually, if they could attend a meeting prior to it, to I would like the board's feedback on all of this, on like to have like part of the strategic master plan moving forward, you have to have a vision of what you want. I understand that we did one, but if we're going to utilize the structure right next door, whether it's to save it and repurpose it, it might be smarter to look at it using the property that we're sitting in and that one to make kind of the facility that is in the strategic master plan that we had done. Like,
Is that part of the scope, Dan, where like, will they look broadly at, here's all the resources the park currently has? I mean, I think
Correct.
that's what it says in these
And-
pieces.
Yeah,
So,
and neighboring park districts and other private providers.
right.
so if you want 1 through 10, here are the solutions A, B, C, and D for how you can accomplish 1 through 10 or 1 through 8 or 1 through
Right.
whatever that combination
Right.
is. And the feasibility piece of it is really, where do you find that sweet spot? Where's the apex of investment to return on investment and matching up with community need? There's a lot of layers to it.
Right.
That-
That's kind of what I was trying to get at, is that I don't want us to just get, pigeonholed into just worrying about the building next door. Because to be quite honest, the footprint over there is
Agree.
very small.
Right.
Right. And if we do want to, make sure that we're giving at least the taxpayers what they want, then we should be looking at everything from a broader perspective, right? Which is why we had the strategic study, this strategic plan done. So if we can incorporate that into the feasibility study, I think it would be beneficial not only to us and staff, but also the taxpayers as well. I don't want anyone to think that we're just building something to build it without having any foresight in the future of future needs. Does that make sense?
what the
Under the
process
impression,
is.
yeah.
Right.
That's the
That's what the
idea.
process
Yeah.
is.
Right.
So,
Right.
Because it could come back and it could not be feasible.
correct.
Or exactly.
Or the support that we think exists in the strategic master plan, once we resurvey people with more hard data, it could turn out that people aren't that interested after all. They want it, but they don't want to pay for it. And that's
That,
our job staff's job is to respond to the community and make recommendations to the board.
and honestly, I think that's one of the most important points that you have in here is point H under the scope of work. It specifically says an analysis of current space, project growth, community interest in need, and the community's willingness to financially support future recreational space. It's one thing to say, I want the world. It's another thing to say, I'm willing to pay for it.
Right.
So I think that all comes out of this, and we may end up in a position where we were a handful of years ago, where we say, this would all be wonderful to do, but if we don't get the support to do it and the financial backing, it's not going to happen. Vice versa, we may come up with a middle of the road option that's just as amenable to the community, doesn't cost as much, isn't as over the top. And that's what they're going to give us, I presume, right? Is we're giving you everything from, we're going to level it and make it another soccer field, all the way to the other end of the spectrum, which is we'll build a multi-floor, well, I mean, they won't go that crazy, but
Sure. Well, I think.
But they could.
Maybe
Yeah.
not quite. I think they're going to meet with staff and with the board, determine what we have today, what our inventory is. They're going to take that information and compile it, and then they're going to bring it out to the streets and see what the community thinks. Because
Yep.
if it's, like you said, if it's
Right.
one big facility, great. If it's not, then it's just knock it down and just make do with what you have and continue to try to work with other providers like the university and St. Joan of Arc and 202 and others. That's fine too.
But I mean, I'm not going to go there. I'm just saying, some of those options have been taken away from discussions if you were to have this 10 years ago.
So Dan, are you just looking for us to support the RFP as written, or what is the request at the, or is it just?
It's
show
just-
us?
It's information and feedback. I mean,
Okay.
it's not like I'm recommending, staff isn't recommending we authorize this and issue this next week. As far as I'm concerned, if we want to put money in the budget, which we already kind of put a number in there for, in our internal draft,
Mm.
and we want to begin the process in January, that's fine.
Yeah.
To staff's
Study-
point, and I just feel compelled to reiterate it again, is it's step by step. We're not trying to force feed anybody this.
Yeah.
And if we want to negotiate with the consultants that participate in the process, that, hey, let's do one step at a time and pay them, here, and then are we ready to keep going and we want to keep going, then we authorize again. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think it's important to at least get the process started.
Well, and I agree. And
Wants to end it, then end it.
and that's the direction that we gave you guys, was we want to capitalize on the fresh information in the feedback that we received from residents. So the quicker we can at least move forward and coming up with ideas, not necessarily doing anything yet, but coming up with the ideas, keeps it current and acts upon this huge study that we did that had some great information in it.
And I think the sooner we can get to that point, the better.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that, well, I know, for example, at a board meeting yesterday at C-Spar, the Park District of LaGrange Park has a project going, and the way they see the prices escalating every month it's bothersome.
Yeah.
And kind of like I mentioned last meeting, that what used to be able to do 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago, you can't do it for twice that.
Got a little inflation.
The only,
Where's the
my-
board? I mean,
Well,
we don't have to do anything. Do we want to? Are we
I-
interested in issuing an RFP, or do we want to punt it for a little bit and think about it a little bit longer? Like, kind of.
I'd like to see us start the process. I agree. I mean, we're here to represent the taxpayers. We asked for their input. I mean, our board should always be driving to be giving the community what they want. And I think that we at least owe it to them to look into, a direction for that. And this is a good starting point.
I can say there are some things, because I've been talking to some other consultants just to get a frame of reference, and there are some minor changes that can be incorporated. There's some things in, like, for example, having an architect be the lead. If there's a perception that it's a foregone conclusion that if there's a recommendation to build something, that they're going to get the work, and if that's going to muddy the waters, fine. We can negotiate or put in there that a lead has to be a consulting firm and not an architecture firm. Again, I want to do everything to give the board the confidence that everything is on the up and up. We got nothing to hide. Any questions, ask. I'm not, if you want to be a part of every step of the way, I don't care. It's your call, and I take direction from the board.
actually, I was just going to say, I did want to see some language. It says to guarantee independence, the architect and vendors that work on the facility assessment should not be eligible to work on an indoor recreation facility if it goes that route. They will have an inherent bias and financial benefit to see a facility developed. So,
are you reading that from the RFP?
no, I'm
where-
reading that from my.
Oh, I was like, I don't have that in the
No,
RFP.
No, I just think
Okay.
that should be added.
What was that? The people that do the RFP can't do the building? Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
yeah,
Yeah,
because
we're
they'll,
not the building. I
because
don't-
they'll
I
have
don't
an
see
So you don't have a
inherent
conflict of
bias.
interest.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a poor thing to examine. I don't know that it's a necessity at this stage though, I think that's one of the things that we would discuss once a feasibility study is completed. And that like, right, that's not part of the feasibility study. The feasibility study just helps us decide what direction do we want to go. And then the next step would be, all right, now let's get somebody engaged to make the decision happen.
So, yeah, there are different approaches, you know, and I spoke to a consultant firm that we've never worked with, but I've heard of. And they typically don't engage with an architect firm until their findings determine that, okay, we need to get an architecture firm on board to provide some basic renderings of what the community has gathered, or what they've gathered from the community to date.
And I would agree. I don't think we need an architect to tell us what the cost is going to be. That's what comes before we get to that point. So we would be in a good position to say, this is where we want to be before we could engage them. And we don't have to pay as much upfront.
Possibly.
Yeah,
We've
possibly.
never done one of these before.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's why I went to neighboring districts and we're grateful for their sharing their information.
Cool. Well, I would agree with Carrie. I think this piece of the step, right? This is
Agreed.
we keep saying it, it's a multi-step process.
This
piece
is
of
step one. Yeah,
yes,
we need to
yes,
take
of
this
like
step.
50.
I 100% agree.
Why don't if it's all right, I'd like to add a couple, not right now, but I can get another draft to you with just a couple minor changes to address any other concerns that you have, and then we can go from there.
I love it.
I like that. Idea.
Yep, agree. Thank you.
Also then discuss, if you want, next month, we can discuss and firm up the board's appetite or what you'd like to physically when you want to issue it, when you want to physically start.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
So again, we're trying to be deliberate and transparent. It's always been our case, and this is obviously what projects we've done.
All right. Any
Thank-
other conversation? Okay, moving on to the next item then is department updates. Those were submitted in our board packet. Any conversation around those? I know I saw a couple questions going back and forth around the vandalism and stuff like that, but so we think that those are all unrelated, just happened to be a
just-
bad week.
Was it a lot or just like little scribble or is it?
Things here and there, but just so you know, the police are, every time the police are called to identify exactly what the questions that a lot of you have asked is it gang related or is it tied together? So the police are always out there.
Always kids.
Yes.
All right. Any other conversation on staff reports? All right. CSPA report is submitted in your packets. All right, moving on to officer reports. I guess I go first. So I guess just two quick comments. So one, I've seen all the socials and stuff come out about the Scarecrow Scramble and Monster Madness and all that stuff. So just looking forward to those in October. Those are always fan favorites in my household. So looking forward to those. So congrats to the staff for it's always a good event. So hopefully congrats in advance to the staff. And the only other thing is I did go to the village meeting on August, I think 19th is the date I had written down. So hopefully I got that right. Just because I know they were going to talk about the pickleball noise and stuff. So I just kind of wanted to hear what they had to say. Paraphrasing here, but so if you guys haven't heard, so I'm paraphrasing here and probably leaving out some nuanced conversation. So go listen to it if you haven't. But for the most part, the trustees agreed that they didn't want to get into park district issues basically. And kind of they saw me, Dan, and Tom, you were kind of there for a couple of reasons, but kind of saw us sitting in the back and just gave us advice, if you will, and that we should try to find common ground. It's kind of how they termed it. So I don't know, Dan or Tom, if you could jump in here a second, but so I would say that, and I feel like we did try to find common ground back in June, right? When we left here, we did want to trial quiet courts after Tate Woods is done. Kind of got rejected by the neighbors saying that converting pickleball courts back to tennis courts is the only way forward. So I'm personally at a loss. I'm still open to ideas, but like closing the courts isn't clearly something the board wants to do. So still listen to ideas, but I do feel like the board has tried to find common ground, which is what the village trustees kind of recommended. So not looking for conversation, just kind of that was my update from the village board meeting. So Superintendent Silver.
All of our money is either FDIC or fully collateralized. Maxi Safe has added a few more financial institutions, so we're able to put more money there, which has been a big benefit to the Lisle residents on the interest rate. You'll notice that our funds are pretty much standard as they are usually through August. Golf course is slightly ahead, I believe, than last year. That's doing very well. The cart paths, as you said, Carrie, have been well received. I'm excited about adding this next extension, which is really in need. So thank you for that and the board for that. But it's the golf course is humming along. It's amazing. And if the weather stays the way they're saying, this might beat last year. We just bid $1 million last year for the first time. So it's still looking very strong and good. And so we're building up a reserve, fortunately, for future capital projects, either through the recreation or back into the enterprise fund. Unfortunately, I'm looking to spend more to the golf course, but as we get in the budget, you'll see that we've got some issues coming down the road. And the main one is going to be the sprinkler system. It's well past its date, and we're looking at, this is just a forewarning to you. It's coming down the road that we'll be needing to put in a new system, and it's going to be quite expensive, kind of sticker shock for you, Tom, but it is what it is, to get these things done. But we're looking at it and trying to save our money to afford that we can pay as we go versus having to ask the taxpayers for money and things like that. So, but financially, we're in a good spot right now. We're running with the intention of operating in the black like we've always have. And so I think we're in a good spot.
Thank you. Like Commissioners?
Actually, I have a question on I should meant to ask this before we voted, but the cart path, it's not in the floodplain or anything that we just voted on earlier tonight.
It is, but it's maintenance. It's
Okay.
replacing. Right.
Yeah, so I went finally for the first time this year. I did a nice kayak trip on the DuPage River. It was a little low, but not as low as I thought it would have been. So, I mean, it was good. So if anybody wants to take a trip down the DuPage, you could still do it. Like Tim said, I was at that August 19th village board meeting for the pickleball discussion, as well as I know the village is starting to look at a TIF for the east quarter of Ogden Avenue. So like if staff could maybe work with or coordinate with the village staff to see what their timeline is. So we as a board could have a timely discussion if we either want to oppose or support all or part of that
But
TIF.
that doesn't have anything to do with park board.
Yeah, it does. We got a seat on the joint review board. Absolutely, we do. We have a seat on the joint review board, and what I didn't know until there was one up in Sugar Grove, if the joint review board actually were a majority of the joint review board were to vote no, then the village board has to have a super majority to approve a TIF. So again, if the staff could just coordinate with the village on that, and so we could have a discussion on that in appropriate time. The other thing, it is a certain date here in the future. I wouldn't mind looking at maybe add in a couple of policies, an ethics ordinance sooner rather than later. I know this is looking down the road, but I want to at least get it on the books. Policy that would basically ban contractors and principals of those businesses that will financially benefit from any project from financially contributing and or organizing a citizens group to advocate support for this or any project. This includes, but is not limited to, passing a referendum. For example, I don't want an architect of an indoor recreation center project donating thousands of dollars to a citizen group to advocate for passing a referendum, which they will financially benefit from. This will eliminate pay to play. And I did pull from the state Board of Elections from 2008, Williams Architect.
This is like politicking. I'm going to be honest with
I'm
you.
asking for a policy.
Well, first of all, board directs any policies.
Well,
That would be an appropriate discussion to talk about if we wanted to add that to a board agenda.
I will.
And talk about if we wanted to review policies and put them and have a discussion as a board, not direction by one board member.
I just put in a fourth. I will work with President Wessel and see if we could get this on the agenda.
Well, it would be not just President Wessel, it would be working as a whole board. If we all, as a voice,
Then
we all have the same voice. We are equal voices on
I
the
understand.
board.
Let's have a discussion. That's all I'm
And I
saying.
really, I take kind of offense that always your tone comes out as you're directing,
I'm not doing- I said to have a
and
discussion.
you are one voice.
He's just making a suggestion at this point.
Well, It's my opinion.
And actually, it's not a bad suggestion. And I kind of would.
We have an
coincide
ethics
with-
policy already, though.
I'm sure,
Thank you.
I'm sure. I mean, but he wasn't
Yeah.
direct, he wasn't trying to politic or anything.
right.
He was just trying to make his
We
point.
can review we can see what our policies and procedures are. We can review them and then
All right.
as a board, see if that's something we need to entertain.
And then
Yep.
the other one I would like to discuss with you would be like naming rights for facilities and stuff. And parks for that matter too. Oh, and I know the board also received a constituent email regarding customer service on the golf course. I've actually heard a couple other similar stories like that. I personally, the one time I've been there, I did not have, I did have a good experience. So I did not have this experience that we received in an email. So maybe if staff wants to remind the golf course staff, just,
I'm not aware of any.
yeah,
email.
well, I thought, okay, I'll forward.
Oh,
it
were you
to
not on the email?
Yeah,
Believe so.
all right.
Oh, I just assumed, yeah, I can forward it to
I'll
you.
forward it to you then. Okay. And then if staff just wants to just give a friendly reminder to the golf course staff, that's all. Go ahead.
I got a clarification point, Tom, on the TIF. I'm the representative for the Park District, and I do not believe we can vote no. They do not ask us for the TIF. They've already decided the TIF. They just bring us in after the fact. The village never asks us, do you vote to approve this TIF? So I think your information is slightly wrong. We do not have a say. The village can do what it wants, and we're just there as
As
the
an advisory
courtesy of the village to let us know what they're
Well,
doing.
there's the joint review board is a legal board. It is an advisory board. You are correct. It could be 6-1 that says we do not support this TIF. And you're right, the village could ram it through. They could do that, but TIFs have been defeated in the past in the village.
That's fine, but you said it has to go back to the board for a majority rule. It does not have to do that. That's if they choose to do that. We don't have legal precedence unless we're suing them to do that. So just
There is, but
FYI.
I'm not saying we should sue. I know that's going on in Winfield right now. All I
Mhm.
was saying is, and I did not know this until there was a Sugar Grove TIF discussion recently. If the joint review board does not vote to, I don't want to call it support, advisory to support, they would have to use a super majority.
They've never asked us to vote on any of that.
What I'm saying is there's not a vote.
We don't get that option to vote on. I'm just telling you, I've never had an option to vote a no on a TIF. I'm just telling you, I've been the board representative since TIF 1, and I've never had that option to vote against a TIF.
Well, then maybe that TIF board is.
Well, you take that up with your mayor. I mean,
don't
that's not
disagree.
me.
I don't disagree.
Any other comments from commissioners?
Sorry.
Sorry, casually drinking.
Just wanted to quickly mention that had the opportunity to walk through Tate Woods Park with both Aaron and Dan and Tom. It was fantastic. So it's my daily commute. I go by the park every day and I get to see the incremental progress, and it went from incremental progress to overnight to being catastrophic. Catastrophic is a bad word, but to major progress.
Good
So,
catastrophic
yeah.
progress.
Yeah, good catastrophic progress. Reached out to Dan and had the opportunity to go walk through. Aaron gave us kind of a guided tour of not only what the progress was at the time. They had just installed the shade over the pickleball courts and had finished the painting and striping, which looked amazing from the road, looked even better in person. Since then, we've seen the shelter get put in place and the constant progress on the play structure. It looks really awesome, not just from the road, but up close. I encourage any commissioner who has the opportunity to go take a walk, especially during the building process, because I think it'll give you that much more appreciation for the final product once it gets out there, to go take a look, because the team's been doing a great job out there. So
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Mine, it's pretty cool. Yeah, go take a look if you get a couple minutes.
thank you
Yeah,
for saving that one so I could say it.
Yeah. Jason or Carrie?
I'm good.
All right. If there are no other last chance, going once, going twice. All right, if there are no other comments, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Meeting is adjourned at 7:49.